How old man is, we cannot even faintly guess. One thing, however, is a biologically certain fact. He is by no means of recent extraction, but of extremely ancient age. Man's descent is an unbroken succession of missing links. The lateral branches of the primates were lopped off on some half a dozen occasions in the Earth's history, and only these reveal to us their earlier forms. Charles Darwin, Origin of the Species. The generally accepted conception of human history states that approximately 10 million years ago, during the Pliocene epoch, a species of ape known as Ramapithecus descended from the trees to forage in the African savanna, thus initiating the process that led to the evolution of modern humans. Ramapithecus dates back to the period between 14 to 10 million years ago. It was discovered and christened as Rama's ape by Edward Lewis in 1934. The specimen was later analyzed by Elwyn Simons in 1964. Simons gave the name Ramapithecus punjabicus to this find, which was a long time thought to be the highest evolved form in the hominid evolution, belonging to the ape group of Dryopithecus. The fossils of Ramapithecus, primarily teeth and jaw, come from two areas, the Siwalik Hills in India and Fort Turnan in Kenya. Other specimens have been discovered from Turkey, Hungary, and Greece. Professor Anup Kumar Kapoor, Department of Anthropology, New Delhi University. From these simian ancestors, at least 6 species of hominins developed, forming 2 distinct groups known as Australopithecus, southern ape, and Homo, man, both contemporaneous. Homo habilis is considered the first to use tools, and Homo erectus is believed to have become more skilled in tool use and also to have discovered the benefits of fire. This is the generally accepted picture of our evolution up until around 110,000 years ago. However, many strange finds have challenged this picture. For example, in 1868, a miner named James Parsons was loosening a large mass at a depth of 100 feet when he suddenly exposed a smooth slate wall covered with strange hieroglyphic writing. The letters were raised and well defined. The coal that had covered the wall bore their distinct impression, which means the letters date to a time when the coal was in a vegetable state and had molded itself against the wall. Each sign was 3/4 of an inch in size and arranged in rows precisely spaced 3 inches apart. The find was well documented and attested to by several reliable witnesses, but the most disturbing fact about the mysterious slate wall and its glyphs was their undeniable presence in coal from the Carboniferous era, well over 200 million years old. Who carved these hieroglyphics more than 250 million years before humans walked the earth? Los Angeles News of December 17, 1869. In 1953, miners of the Lion coal mine of Wattis, Utah, broke into a network of tunnels between 5 and 6 feet in height and width, which contained coal of such vast antiquity that it had become weathered to a state of uselessness for any kind of burning or heat. A search outside the mountain in direct line with the tunnels revealed no sign of any entrance. Since the tunnels were discovered when the miners were working an 8-foot coal seam at 8,500 feet, the evidence is irrefutable that an undetermined someone conducted an ambitious mining project so far back in time that all exterior traces have been eroded away. Brad Steiger, Nations Before Our Own. We will look at some more of these anomalous finds later in the show. 500,000 years ago, the intellectual capacity of Homo erectus suddenly and inexplicably increased by 1/3, enabling them to assert their superiority and win the struggle for survival. Appearing in the fossil record about 2 million years ago, Homo erectus was the first hominin to have relatively human-like proportions. Over about 1.75 million years, they expanded into Western Asia, then into Eastern Asia, including what is today China and Indonesia. It is one of the most successful human species to have ever lived. It seemingly evolved 2 million years ago, and if the recent dates from Indonesia are correct, it was still around 108,000 years ago. Paleoanthropologist Andy Herries of La Trobe University in Melbourne, Australia. However, science still cannot justify this sudden leap on the evolutionary scale around 500,000 years ago. Though various theories have been proposed, including the widely accepted notion that a meteor shower might have stimulated genetic mutation. If modern humans are the result of a mutation, isn't it more likely that this would have manifested as a physical deformity rather than a mental attribute? It is anomalies of this kind that have caused considerable unrest to highly respected evolutionary scientists such as Noam Chomsky and Roger Penrose. When state-of-the-art evolutionary principles are applied, the logical conclusion is that we should not be here. The religious view of divine creation suffers from equal skepticism. Science and religion are driving in circles in a cul-de-sac. But humanity is here, and this fact must be explained. The evolution of humanity is only one of many mysteries that conventional science cannot explain. Alan Alford, Gods of the New Millennium. The human brain has been described as the greatest mystery of all, as its 14 billion active cells in the cerebral cortex not only make it infinitely more complex than any computer we could create today, but also appear to have evolved beyond the capacities we have yet developed. We humans have approximately 86 billion neurons in our brains, woven together by an estimated 100 trillion connections, or synapses. It's a daunting task to understand the details of how those cells work, let alone how they come together to make up our sensory systems, our behavior, our consciousness. Christoph Koch, Ph.D., Chief Scientist and President of the Allen Institute for Brain Science. Strangely, the brain does not degenerate, as might be expected of an organ that is not fully used. Something beyond mere biophysiological function animates it, perhaps the same spark that facilitated the leap in consciousness from ape to man. Homo erectus eventually evolved into Homo sapiens, whose emergence is relatively recent, around 100,000 years ago. Evolution can explain the general course of events that caused life and life's forms to develop on Earth, from the simplest one-celled creature to man. But evolution cannot account for the appearance of Homo sapiens, which happened virtually overnight in terms of the millions of years evolution requires, and with no evidence of earlier stages that would indicate a gradual change from Homo erectus. The hominid of the genus Homo is a product of evolution, but Homo sapiens is the product of some sudden revolutionary event. The scholars have no explanation. But we do. The Sumerian and Babylonian texts do. The Old Testament does. Homo sapiens, modern man, was brought about by the ancient gods. Zechariah Sitchin, the 12th planet. Whatever the cause, this species proved resourceful enough to survive the last ice age, which ended about 10,000 years ago. By this time, the first organized communities were forming. Walled cities were being built in the Jordan River Valley, and agriculture was replacing hunting as the primary source of sustenance. Basal hominins 7 to 4.3 million years ago. Generalized Australopiths 4.3 to 1.98 million years ago. Early Homo 2.8 to 1.65 million years ago. Robust Australopiths 2.7 to 1.0 million years ago. Pre-modern Homo 1.8 million years ago to 300,000 years ago. Neanderthals 430,000 to 40,000 years ago. Anatomically modern humans 300,000 years ago to present. This timeline is the one officially agreed upon by the academic community, but hundreds of artifacts discovered over the past 150 years challenge this conception and, if verified, could lead to a considerable revision of history. Recently, the Institute of Bolivian Archaeology found a petrified footprint, which, according to the carbon-14 analysis, was made during the Tertiary Age, about 15 million years ago. This footprint corresponds to a normal Homo sapien of about 6 feet and about 80 pounds. It is important to know about these things because, certainly, something happened in the past, indicating that there have been other civilizations much more developed than ours. But they disappeared. They, the aliens, claimed that the disappearance of previous civilizations was not only due to natural catastrophes, but also because of man himself. Contacté Luis Fernando Mostajo Maertens. Findings like this suggest that humanity has inhabited Earth for much longer than previously believed. The quality of some artifacts and the tools that seem to have been used to create them have led eminent scholars, such as anthropologist Thomas Wynne, to conclude that primitive humans, specifically the Stone Age inhabitants of Tanzania, may have possessed intelligence comparable to our own. Compared to modern humans, Stone Age humans and human ancestors may have been primitive, but they were far more sophisticated than the grunting cavemen often depicted on screen. In fact, early humans were ingenious problem solvers who managed to survive and thrive in hostile environments. More and more, researchers are finding we're not so different. Natasha Frost, History Channel. If they thought as we do, is it so unreasonable to consider that they might have achieved more than we credit them with? There are other explanations for findings such as these, which we will look at towards the end of the show. The existence of these anomalous artifacts appears to have been known for more than a century, but they have been deliberately ignored by science because they challenge the accepted conception of evolution, much like the massive megalithic monuments of the ancient world were marginalized simply because we could not explain their purpose or means of construction. A large mountain of evidence available from literary and other sources is available to support the hypothesis that something strange has occurred in the remote past on this planet. Unfortunately, most of the so-called reputable institutions have been more interested in piecing together mankind's historical record than in understanding the significance of the rare and unusual artifacts that from time to time come to their attention. Of much greater concern is the methodical and systematic way in which the authorities and powers that be have hidden the truth, oftentimes suppressing evidence that would revise the early history of America and, in many notable cases, would completely rewrite the record and mankind's place in it. Ted St. Rain, Mysteries of America. In the 35 years following the publication of On the Origin of Species by Charles Darwin in 1859, there were many reports of incredible discoveries, but they were promptly dismissed by the official academic community for being at odds with the new orthodoxy. On Tuesday, June 9, 1891, Mrs. S. W. Culp broke a lump of coal preparatory to placing it in the scuttle, an act she had performed thousands of times. The artifact that fell out of the lump was most singular. At first, according to the Morrisonville, Illinois, Times of June 11, 1891, Mrs. Culp thought the chain had been dropped accidentally in the coal, but as she undertook to lift the chain up, the idea of its having been recently dropped was at once made fallacious, for as the lump of coal broke, it separated almost in the middle, and the circular position of the chain placed the two ends near to each other. And as the lump separated, the middle of the chain became loosened, while each end remained fastened to the coal. This is a study for the students of archaeology who love to puzzle their brains out over the geological construction of the Earth, from whose ancient depth the curious is always dropping out. Coal, of course, dates to the Carboniferous era between 320 and 290 million years ago. Brad Steiger, Mysteries of Time and Space. These stories include a human-like footprint about 60 centimeters long, found alongside dinosaur tracks on a fossilized rock near the Glen Rose River in Texas. According to Mr. Ernest Adams, the man who discovered the tracks, there was a clear set of at least 9 of these giant man tracks in the location known as the Fourth River Crossing near the waterfall, several miles up the Paluxy River from Glen Rose. At least 15 local people testified to seeing the same set of tracks in that area, which became known as the Fourth Crossing Tracks. Another witness, Mr. Charlie Moss, said this about the tracks: they were so plain that you could see where he was walking, and then he got up on the balls of his feet and commenced to run. Since dinosaurs went extinct about 65 million years ago, one can only guess at the immense age of these footprints. In the 1970s, numerous stones were discovered in a riverbed in Ica, Peru, engraved with what appeared to be depictions of surgery, world maps, and dinosaurs. 11,000 stones were engraved with advanced knowledge in medicine, zoology, biology, law, geography, religion, astronomy, and astronautics, detailing the knowledge of that advanced society. The figures of the other humanity engraved on these stone tablets looked very much like men of Earth. For the first time, humanity is confronted with the surprising evidence that someone before him knew the secrets of surgery, astronomy, spaceflight, and many other things, such as the movement of the continents that make up our world. All this, and much more still to be discovered, lies there in the Peruvian desert called Ocucaje. Juan José Benítez, Existiu outra humanidade. There was another humanity. But there are many more official reports of curious artifacts whose existence is difficult to dismiss. On February 13, 1961, Wallace Lane, Virginia Maxey, and Mike Mikesell were seeking interesting mineral specimens about 6 miles northeast of Alancha, near the dry bed of Owens Lake. At lunchtime, all three placed their specimens in a rucksack. The next day, Mikesell ruined a new diamond saw blade while cutting what he thought was a geode. Inside, Mikesell found a perfectly circular section of very hard, white material that appeared to be porcelain. In the center of the porcelain cylinder was a 2 mm shaft of bright metal. The metal shaft responded to a magnet. In addition to the shaft, the discoverers noticed 2 non-magnetic metallic metal objects in the crust, resembling a nail and a washer. Stranger still, the inner layer was hexagonal and formed a casing around the hard porcelain cylinder. Within the inner layer, a layer of decomposing copper surrounded the porcelain cylinder. It looked for all the world like an electrical component of some sort. A geologist who had examined the geode said the nodule had taken at least 500,000 years to attain its present form. Pierre Stromberg, The Wonder of Creation Astronomy. In the 1980s, American student Michael Cremo and his colleague Richard Thompson, a mathematician and scientist, began researching the history of paleontology, the study of ancient human relics. What they found was quite astonishing. Hundreds of artifacts that do not fit neatly into the picture of known evolutionary patterns. They soon tracked down original accounts of many anomalous artifacts in university libraries, using clues found in footnotes of 19th-century scientific publications. After years of daring investigative work, they compiled the most intriguing cases into a voluminous 900-page study provocatively titled Forbidden Archaeology. According to standard scientific views, humans like ourselves emerged only within the past 100,000 years or so. However, forbidden archaeology has documented abundant evidence that humans have existed for millions of years. Hindu historical literature, particularly the Puranas and Itihasas, place human existence in the context of repeating time cycles called yugas and kalpas, lasting hundreds of millions of years. During this entire time, according to the Puranic accounts, humans coexisted with creatures in some ways resembling the earlier tool-making hominids of modern evolutionary accounts. If one were to take the Puranic record as objectively true, and also take into account the generally admitted imperfection and complexity of the archaeological and anthropological record, one could make the following prediction. The strata of the Earth, extending back hundreds of millions of years, should yield a bewildering mixture of hominid bones, some anatomically modern human and some not, as well as a similarly bewildering variety of artifacts, some displaying a high level of artistry and others not. Michael Cremo, Forbidden Archaeology. Cremo's prediction of what might be found under layers of Earth seems to have been proven correct. His study includes details of a shell carved with a human face from the Pleistocene era, discovered by Henry Stopes, a researcher at the Geological Society of England. Stopes presented the curious fossilized shell of the species Pectunculus glycimeris, with a crude but recognizable human face on its surface, at the York meeting of the British Association. As well as the face, there was a hole close to the top of the shell, evidently to enable it to be suspended. According to his account, the shell had been found some years before in the well-known late Pliocene shell-bearing deposits at Red Crag, Suffolk. He presented it as evidence for very early humans in England between 2.1 and 1 million years ago, but no academic journal would accept it for publication, so he resorted to a self-published pamphlet. Keith Fitzpatrick Matthews, Museum Curator, North Hertfordshire. In 1872, geologist Edward Charlesworth unsuccessfully tried to persuade his colleagues at the Royal Anthropological Society that a secret deposit of shark teeth, discovered in a layer of soil dating between 2 and 2.5 million years ago, showed unmistakable signs of having been drilled to make a necklace. but his colleagues reminded him that Australopithecus, being ape-like, was incapable of craftsmanship, attributing the perfectly spherical holes to parasites or atmospheric wear. Charlesworth recalls the episode as follows. "Well, the moment I found the drilled hole in his shark's teeth, I thought, why, surely primitive man was here. Here we have a really Pliocene man. I went through all my shark's teeth and altogether found 8 with the hole drilled through them. I sent them to Professor Owen, who wrote a report stating that he really believed the drilling was human work. There was not a shadow of a doubt that these teeth were really of Pliocene age." More revealing is the story of Portuguese geologist Carlos Ribeiro, who in the 1860s discovered worked pyromachic flint in limestone beds in the Tagus River basin. Ribeiro knew these beds could date to the Pliocene and Miocene epochs, but in his official report he redated his findings to the Pleistocene period, much later, because he feared ridicule if he claimed to have found human artifacts evidently 2 to 5 million years old. Altogether, there seems little reason why Ribeiro's discoveries should not be receiving some serious attention, even today. Here we have a professional geologist, the head of Portugal's Geological Commission, making discoveries of flint implements in Miocene strata. The implements resembled accepted types, and they displayed characteristics that modern experts in lithic technology accept as signs of human manufacture. To resolve controversial questions, a Congress of Europe's leading archaeologists and anthropologists deputed a committee to conduct a first-hand investigation of one of the sites of Ribeiro's discoveries. There, a scientist discovered in situ an implement in a Miocene bed clearly manufactured by human hands, as witnessed by several other members of the committee. Michael Cremo, Forbidden Archaeology, The Hidden History of the Human Race. Among Cremo's catalogue of finds that were suppressed, for which he provides documentary evidence, are what appears to be an iron stake discovered in a Devonian-era rock, a time when amphibians supposedly first appeared, a statuette dated to 2 million years from the Plio-Pleistocene era, and a metal vase found in Precambrian rock strata in Dorchester, Massachusetts. The Precambrian era is the oldest known geological era, suggesting the vase's existence 600 million years ago. Gold prospectors in the Ural Mountains of Russia made an astounding discovery in 1991 when they stumbled upon thousands of spiral-shaped metal objects buried by a small river. The various sizes of the artifacts varied from 3 centimeters down to a shockingly small 1/10,000th of an inch, and were buried anywhere from 10 to 40 feet deep in the mud. The large spirals appeared to be composed of copper, while the smaller ones were made from 2 rare metals often used in the hardening of steel. While the function of these strange spirals is still not understood, all relative testing has determined them to be approximately 20,000 years old. Jen Jeffers, The Raven Report. Among Cremo's catalogue of finds that were suppressed, for which he provides documentary evidence, are what appears to be an iron stake discovered in a Devonian-era rock, a time when amphibians supposedly first appeared, a statuette dated to 2 million years from the Plio-Pleistocene era, and a metal vase found in Precambrian rock strata in Dorchester, Massachusetts. The Precambrian era is the oldest known geological era, suggesting the vase's existence 600 million years ago. Gold prospectors in the Ural Mountains of Russia made an astounding discovery in 1991 when they stumbled upon thousands of spiral-shaped metal objects buried by a small river. The various sizes of the artifacts varied from 3 centimeters down to a shockingly small 1/10,000th of an inch, and were buried anywhere from 10 to 40 feet deep in the mud. The large spirals appeared to be composed of copper, while the smaller ones were made from 2 rare metals often used in the hardening of steel. While the function of these strange spirals is still not understood, all relative testing has determined them to be approximately 20,000 years old. Yes, you heard that correctly. 20,000. Jen Jeffers, The Raven Report. Due to the expansive range of the finds outlined, it is difficult to find an all-encompassing explanation for them. Nevertheless, we have come up with a few theories that might explain the more advanced types, such as the metal components. First, time-traveling tourists. Time travelers visiting ancient Earth may have been careless, dropping futuristic gadgets or tools that became entombed in geological layers. Alternatively, these objects could be intentional breadcrumbs left by explorers to trace their journeys across time. 2. Alien archaeologists. Aliens conducting research on early Earth could have left behind scientific instruments, artifacts, or even cultural items. Perhaps they studied humanity's development as a natural experiment and accidentally, or purposefully, left a trail of their presence. Third, parallel universe overlaps. Reality might occasionally glitch, allowing objects from alternate timelines to manifest in ours. For example, a smartphone from a world where humans advanced earlier might slip through, only to be buried and discovered eons later. Fourth, forgotten advanced civilization. This civilization may have achieved feats rivaling or surpassing our own before being obliterated by a cataclysmic event, e.g., asteroid impact, self-destruction, or alien attack. Their artifacts, misunderstood by modern archaeologists, appear out of place due to the gaps in our historical knowledge. 5. Holographic glitches in the simulation. The discovery of parts might be a deliberate nod from the creators of the simulation, meant to test our curiosity or inject mystery into our world. Alternatively, these artifacts could result from corrupted data in the code of reality. 6. Interdimensional travelers. Entities capable of moving between dimensions may have visited Earth to observe its unique life forms. In doing so, they inadvertently, or deliberately, left objects whose design and purpose defy human understanding. 7. Reverse temporal archaeology. In the far future, advanced humans may send objects back in time to study their integration into history. These experiments might have gone awry, with some artifacts turning up in unintended eras and baffling modern researchers. 8. God's playground. Ancient myths describe gods and demigods with incredible tools, weapons, and vehicles. What if these were tangible objects, now misinterpreted as relics from an impossible time? Perhaps Zeus's thunderbolt was a sophisticated energy weapon and Poseidon's trident a marine exploration device. 9th, interstellar junk. Interstellar waste, dropped from alien trade ships or dumped during exploratory missions, might have fallen to Earth. Over millennia, this debris became embedded in the Earth's crust, later excavated and mistaken for anachronistic human artifacts. That's it for today's show. Let us know what you think in the comment box below. Thanks for watching.